Good day, Doctor. This is Group 1 project presentation by Nyonya Heritage Mission. This group has 5 members, Lee from Indonesia and Blessing from Nigeria, Sunfu ZHANG from China. The group visited 3 major locations in Malacca, which include the Nyonya Heritage Mission, Malacca Sultanate Palace Mission, and Red House. Although the Nyonya Heritage Missions have our focus site, I will give a very brief introduction to the mission and summary of the other 2 visited places. Nyonya Heritage Mission located on Jalan Tang Cheng Log. The Parakan Chinese culture developed from centuries of intermarriage between Chinese traders and local Malay women, resulting in a community that integrated Chinese heritage with Malay language, traditions, and aesthetic. The men are referred to as Baba and the women as Nyonya. This site is fertile for understanding heritage creation and identity hybridity in Southeast Asia. The Malacca Sultanate Palace Museum is a reconstructed wooden palace established in 1986, replicating the royal residence of Sultan Mansur from 15th century. Religion perspective, the museum showcases how Islam influenced the political, legal, and ethical foundation of the Sultanate, with Sharia principles directing the governance. Conceptually, this mission is not just a structure, but it's a conceptual framework representing the leadership, ethics, and civilization pride. Red House, also known as Tattoo. This is arguably Malacca's most iconic heritage stage site. It was built in 1650 during the period of Dutch civilization and served as an administrative center for Dutch governor and deputy governor. Conceptually, the building represents the change of Malacca into controlled urban area, reflecting the idea of national governance as a heritage site today. It also allows visitors to critically analyze colonial legacy and cultural blending in post-colonial conflict.
Hello, my name is Fu Yu. Next to our visit to the Nyonya Heritage Museum, we gain 3 key moral insights. First, we learn to respect the value of cultural diversity. The Nyonya community blends Chinese, Malay, and British elements, a Chinese-style culture with Malaysian ventilation panels, Malay patterns covered on Chinese outer, and Chinese furniture paired with Victorian interior and lamps demonstrates the value of cultural openness and harmonious integration. Second, we understood the importance of respecting elders and maintaining family unity. The layout of ZHANG family home reflects core values such as caring for the young, honoring the elderly, and taking family responsibilities seriously. Standing in the ancestral hall reminded us that respect for the ancestor is essential for harmony in any family. Third, we realized the need to protect cultural heritage. The museum treasures including hand-embroidered costumes, porcelain, reading items, the shell-inlaid ebony furniture, and Malaysia's only gold-filled carved staircase have survived through the careful protection across generations. Next, we also developed 4 important skills. The first is the ability to critically observe and interpret. By studying the furniture, layout, and ceremonial objects, we learned that Nyonya culture is not a simple mix of elements, but a coherent aesthetic system. The second is critical thinking ability. Comparing the Peranakan culture with other Malaysian cultures helps us evaluate similarities, differences, and the historical formation of cultural identity. The third skill is communication and collaboration. Within our group of fan members from China, Indonesia, and Nigeria, we shared our observation and discussed the meanings behind Chinese coverings, Malay ventilation panels, and colorful high windows. Finally, we strengthen our cultural literacy, understanding how religion, immigration, and daily habits jointly shape Malaysia's multicultural society. Next, I will compare the Nyonya Heritage Museum with Confucius Temple in Qufu, China. The Nyonya Heritage Museum reflects Malaysia's multicultural integration, where the Confucius Temple represents over 2,000 years of Confucian heritage. In Malaysia's modernization, the museum protects Peranakan culture from fading. Where the Confucius Temple preserves a philosophical tradition that shaped Chinese ethics. Peranakan cultural identity is mobile and multi-layered, formed through the blending of Chinese and local customs. In contrast, the Confucian identity is stable, centered on long-standing Confucian values and continued rituals like Confucius Day. Their cultural stories are also embodied in different ways. Peranakan objects show daily life and mixed influence, while temple styles and ancestral house symbolize enduring Confucianism.
Baba and Nyonya Heritage Museum and Benin City National Museum in Nigeria. The institution provides the Baba and Nyonya Museum is a restored Peranakan family residence focusing on domestic cultural artifacts, while Benin City National Museum is a national institution featuring notable artifacts from the historical Benin Kingdom. Its religion perspective, the Baba and Nyonya Museum Express is grounded in household ritual, while Benin City Edo identity is anchored in royal, IK, and theoretical cosmology. Social and cultural perspective, the Baba and Nyonya Museum represent a blended identity, emphasizing cultural hybridity and emergence of the elite class in colonial Malacca, while Benin City Museum represents the structure of Benin Kingdom, focusing on pre-colonial governance, royal power, and historical tradition of its court. The theoretical perspective, the Baba and Nyonya Museum align with hybridity theory and transculturalization, while the Benin City Museum operates under post-colonial theory. Conceptual perspective, Baba and Nyonya Museum take a micro-cultural perspective, while Benin City address heritage from macro-political perspective. Together, these institutions fulfill crucial roles in preserving history, material culture, and other valuable perspectives to global museum study.
Hello, my name is HENG. This slide compares royal rule and colonial influence between Malacca and China. In Malacca, the Sultan Palace represents the traditional Malacca kingship, where authority was based on debt, religion, and loyalty. The Dutch status shows colonial administration, where power is increased through bureaucracy and control. In China, royal palace represent centralized authority and Confucian moral order. Colonial influence in China is usually remembered as a disruption and is a less often preserved, shaped heritage. The key difference in these two is that Malacca present royal rule and colonial rule together as a layered historical, while China separates the royal traditional from colonial experience. This reflects different historical paths and different ways of building national identity.
Hello everyone, today let's look at an interesting cultural comparison. The Shenyang Imperial Palace in China, the Baba Nyonya Heritage Museum in Malacca, Malaysia. They sound completely different, right? One is in northeast China, the original home of Qing Dynasty emperors. The other is in Southeast Asia, the old house of Chinese migrants. But looking at them together shows us two very different faces of how Chinese culture exists in the world. Simply put, Shenyang Palace represents the story from the center, from the peak of power. The Peranakan Museum represents the story from the ages, the wisdom of adaptation, and the daily life of ordinary people in a new land. You can see this difference right away in their architecture. Shenyang Palace is grand and symmetrical. It uses yellow titles and dragon motifs, reserved for royalty, showing imperial power and social order everywhere. It tells you this is the center of authority. The Peranakan Museum, it looks more like a beautiful house. It mixes Chinese, Malayan, and European styles. It has colorful tiles and area country yards. Everything is designed for the practical living in a hot tropical climate. It's not about displaying power, but about comfort and daily use. The objects inside tell different stories too. Shenyang Palace holds imperial roles, the walls symbols of state, ceremony, and imperial ruler. The Peranakan Museum displays beautiful wedding outfits, handmade beaded shoes, and kitchen utensils. They are all about family, daily rules, and how a community remembers who they are through weddings, funerals, and the food they eat. So Siam Palace tells the history of how a nation was shaped. The Peranakan Museum tells the history of how a home and a culture were preserved. To conclude, these two places together give us a rich understanding of Chinese cultural heritage. It can exist as a strong central formal power like Siam Palace, and it can also exist as a flexible living grassroots force like the Peranakan Museum, taking root, blending in, and shining in new ways far from its original home. That's the power of culture. It can build empires and it can warm every home away from home.
Hello, my name is LEIL ZAKI. I'm from Indonesia. In this part, I'm going to discuss about the comparison between Chinese peranakan in Malaysia and in Indonesia. I'm going to see from 3 points of view. The first one is the religion, the second one is daily life, and the third one is about the way that government preserve the cultures. Okay, the first one is religions. Both of the group, Indonesia and also Malaysia, Chinese Peranakan, mix Taoism, Buddhism, and also Confucianism, and also affected by the local belief, such as Japanese, Indonesia, and also Islamic religion. Indonesia, unfortunately, in the past governments, the Chinese Peranakan people, they cannot perform their ritual in public if we compare to the Malaysians. The second one is about daily life. In my opinion, both of Indonesian and also Malaysia Chinese Peranakan, they tend to speak the local language. They speak, for example, they speak Japanese in Indonesia. Maybe in Indonesia, in Malaysia, they speak Malayan language, for example. And also, they have greatly influenced by the locals. For example, food and also the clothing and also the event. And the third one's related to the way the government preserve the cultures. In Malaysia, such as the museum that we visited, Baba and Nyonya, the government preserved it well. However, maybe in Indonesia, since that it was under the pressure of the government, it's not yet well preserved. However, after the new reformations, the Chinese Peranakan has gained a lot of acknowledgement and will also perform. They can perform a lot of event and also festival, such as Cap Gome and also Chinese New Year's and any others festival related to the Chinese Peranakan festival. As the foreign student studying in Malaysia, we visited Baba and Nyonya Museum with a very simple expectation. We're going to visit the place, we're going to take pictures of some antiques, some traditional clothes, for example, and also learn a little bit about the history. However, our perspective changed completely when we entered the museum, when the guide introduced briefly in the beginning, and after that we come to see the real person's personal story and also real family homes, and also we also learns about the cultural richness and the deep emotional meaning, the way that Chinese, Malay, and also the European influence blend together in the Baba and Nyonya lifestyle truly amazed us. Through this visit, we realized that Malaysian culture is more than diverse. It deeply connected, layered, and also preserved with the pride. It taught us to appreciate not just the beauty of heritage, but also the importance of the understanding of the story behind it. It was a really amazing experience of us. Thank you.
From this teamwork, these activities helps foreign country students adapt to Malaysian environment in 3 ways. First, it helps us to understand the local cultural normals, such as respect, harmony, and the social order. Second, it improves influential awareness by showing how Malaysian diversity developed historically. Third, it builds confidence to live and study in Malaysia by connecting classroom learning with real social context. Overall, this visit makes it easier for foreign students to understand Malaysian society and interaction more comfortably in daily and academic life.
For this project, we visited historical sites in Malacca to understand the Malayan society. We focused on 3 key places. The Baba Nyora Museum, it shows how migrant families blended into local life, creating a unique new culture through their daily objects and rules. The Sultan Palace, it represents the foundation Malaya and Islamic traditions. The Red House, it stands as clear evidence of colonial influence. Visiting these sites helped us connect textbook ideas with real places. By comparing them with the historical sites from our own countries, we also saw that what a nation chooses to preserve tells you about its values and paths of development. In short, Malacca's heritage sites are not just about the past, they are active classrooms. This shows us clearly that Malaysia's multicultural society today is the result of long-term interaction, not separation, between indigenous, migrant, and colony influence.
That's it for our group's presentation. Thank you for your attention.